On this video, let's talk about emotional neglect, not getting your needs met, and distorting reality. I'm Robarge, an attachment-focused psychotherapist and a relationship educator, and I like to talk about how to heal attachment injuries and improve our relationship. And this video is going to explore and talk about emotional neglect, specifically how it creates the characteristic, the byproduct, the response to having been emotionally neglected is to have this great, incredible skill to deny reality or distort reality. The example that you're going to be familiar with is to overlook red flags. What this means is that when we're in relationship, our needs are not getting met. We seem to have a really great high tolerance to endure and to tolerate when another person, the other person we're in a relationship with, is not showing up. And perhaps you come from some kind of history in your family. It doesn't have to be parents or your family, it could be from other adult relationships. But your needs, your attachment needs were just so not met that you had to tell yourself some story. You had to fill in the blanks. You had to overcompensate. At times you even created a one-sided relationship where you are doing all of the work and you allowed yourself to imagine that you were engaged. You imagined the other person was engaged. But in fact, there wasn't that much engagement. Now, if we put this in the context of like childhood, it really makes sense that the child can, you as a child can make up that you're closer in feeling a connection that you might not really actually be feeling. But what happens is that we can't let in the crushing grief, the magnitude, the reality that the person we care about, or in this case, if we're talking about childhood and family and the primary caregiver, maybe your parents, but there's this real big, gigantic sadness and a grief and a fear, this great fear that if you let in the truth that the other person is, and I use the phrase there, not there, like they're there, but they're really not there, or they're there in certain ways, but they're not there emotionally. And so you learn how to talk at the other person. You learn how to let them off the hook by not sharing. You learn how to tolerate that they're not really paying attention. And this might like literally be that they're not in the room, or they leave the room, or they don't even look at you. They are preoccupied. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're intentionally trying to be hurtful or mean. We all know that you're very, very hard to be a human, period, and then it's just very, very hard to be a parent. And sometimes parents, and perhaps you're a parent, so you know this too, I mean, the plate is full. Life is full, life is hard, a lot's going on. And, maybe the parent is depressed, just has this depression, and depression pulls their personality. It makes them disappear. They fall into their depression, and as the child, as the observer, you just see the parent like disappear, or they're just not there. And they might be a bit numb, a bit dissociated, a bit off in their own world. And then also, this could be you. Many of us know history or have an experience of a parent who is, there's some addiction present. And, addiction in and of itself is a relationship. It's like, it's the other person. So depending on the act activation of the addiction or the degree to which the addiction is taking over. It just means the parent does not have time. It just is not available because they're spending their time and they're giving their availability, they're giving their effort, they're prioritizing the addiction over the relationship with the child. Now, I can imagine if you're hearing this and that is your history, that's so painful. I mean, it's just so incredibly painful to live it, to experience it, and then even historically after the fact to look back and remember it. It still hurts because there's this grief, this grief that never really fully was acknowledged. The other thing that I like about talking about addictions, or when I say like, I mean, it's not like it's not an enjoyable thing, but when I learned about carried shame, that it's very shameful just by right of design. It's shameful that a parent is not connecting, engaging, emotionally revealing themselves, inviting the child to be known, mirroring the child, entering with a sense of curiosity so that there is this engagement and it's this give and take back and forth. Relationship is really like it's like playing a game of catch. It's like tennis, this back and forth. It's like I offer something, I create an invitation, there's an initiation. We also call it a bid for connection, or we could even call it a bid for affection. So it's almost like I throw the ball to the other person. And in this example, we're talking about a parent. And then the parent, through emotional curiosity, through emotional responsiveness, through facial features, through body language, through smiling, sees that there's some kind of engagement and says, yes, I see you, I hear you, I know that you're reaching out to me. And then the parent says, okay, I'm going to participate. And then the parent, in this metaphorical imagery of this playing ball, they throw the ball back. And in this sense, the ball's not literal. It's like this, it's the way that we engage in a dialogue back and forth. And sometimes it is verbal, sometimes it's through body language. It's very energetic. Like if someone turns towards you and you can just feel like they're bringing their attention towards you. And we're not talking about critical attention. We're not talking about shaming attention. We're not talking about anything judgmental. We're saying like kind, supportive, warm, engaging, curious, like tell me more. Who are you? What's going on with you? How was your day? What does that mean? What are some of the things that you thought about today? Tell me what it feels like right now as you remember what was going on for you. So it's a way that we keep back and forth. Again, it's just like this game of tennis, back and forth. It's your turn, it's my turn, it's your turn, it's my turn. And what happens is that when a parent is distracted, or maybe they don't have the skill, or maybe they never did this before, back to this addiction stuff, like maybe they're so distracted in their addiction or some form of mental illness. That's why I bring the example of like depression. And let's just acknowledge like extreme exhaustion and tiredness. I mean, empathy to many parents, and this could be you, struggling to keep your head above water, just not only financially, which that in and itself, financial stress, financial fear is really scary, and it can really fry your nervous system. But to be preoccupied with everything that you have to hold together, and then it's very possible you don't have that much support, whether you have a partner or not. And then let's say you're a single parent and you don't have that much support. And let's say you don't have family that helps out, and you're trying to take care of everybody and you put yourself last on the list. You just don't have a lot of extra to go to this level of deeper engagement. And chances are, it's very possible you're not even engaging yourself. And so if you're not checking in with yourself, if you're not engaging yourself on a deeper level, if you're not checking in and just saying, how am I? How are things going? in a very meaningful that you're offering yourself some comfort by right of just inquiring, like there's a real caring. And sometimes we don't do that if we're busy, distracted, fear, keep it going, move on to the next thing. So it's just inevitable. We just know it's a reality. Many of us have experienced this, that sometimes parents just do not have the bandwidth, the skill, the availability to be there for the child, to be there for you. So that ultimately, in the big picture, not trying to blame or shame the parent, I hope you could tell I was trying to offer some empathy and compassion in the reality of the context. But the idea is that what happens is that this is a shameful, the conclusion is it's shameful for a parent to ignore and avoid a child. So it's not, I'm not saying that so much in the sense of, the verdict is you deserve shame, or we're judging the parent, that is, shame on you. It has nothing to do with that. It's just saying, like, a byproduct, a reality of what that does is it creates this unfortunate shame. And if you perhaps are familiar with family systems, this idea that the whole family is a unit and everyone is experiencing collective the same thing, like there's this group energy, this family energy. And shame, if one member is being ignored, if the child's being ignored, if the child's not seen, known, heard, valued, understood, just to engage, this is really, really little, not very much engagement happening. And then we say, well, that's sort of, that's a shameful, ultimately, it's a shameful thing to have happen. So then we say, well, there's shame floating, this kind of like energy. There's this shame in the family system. And the idea is like, I wonder where. Or let's use the example also, like, not only the parent not engaging the child is shameful, but let's just say, like, there's shame around addiction. The parent's really choosing addiction over the child, over the other family members, over relationship. Addiction is more important than relationship. And then the parent also has shame about their addiction and shame that they're not engaged, the other family members. But now there's shame floating in the room. And the understanding is that if the parent doesn't take responsibility for that, own that, and address the behavior, the shame never gets claimed or addressed. And then what happens is the child absorbs it, picks it up like the child's a sponge, or the child's mind is like a sponge or a magnet, and pulls that shame into themselves. And the reason why the child does this is to say, well, if my parent does not want to know me, and I'm a child too young to really know about addiction, and I'm too young to know about mental illness and depression, and I'm too young to really have the bandwidth to really let in the empathy about how distracted the parent is around survival needs, and the parent's fear and awareness. The parent never got support anyway, and the parent didn't have parents who were available to them. And so the child says, there must be something wrong with me. If the parent doesn't want to know me, is not relating to me, is not reaching out to me, is not engaging me, is not sitting down, getting on my level, joining the things that I like to do, asking me questions, revealing and sharing vulnerability, sharing things about themselves, so that I know the parent, so that you know the parent. That in that experience, we get to see the parent modeling, revealing who they are. So the child then says, well, I guess, well, this is subconscious. It's not like the child, generally we don't consciously think this, but there's something that happens in our brain through a kind of thought process. It's a warped thought process that says, if my parent doesn't want to know me, then I guess I must not be worth knowing. And there must be something wrong with me. And I'm embarrassed now that there's something wrong with me. Not only embarrassed, but I guess I'm ashamed that my own parent doesn't know me. I'm ashamed my own parent doesn't want to engage with me. I'm ashamed that my parent is not offering emotional engagement, presence, curiosity, attunement, responsiveness. Like, there's just like, no, it's really dead. Like, nothing's happening here. And so if the parent doesn't want to know us, in this example, I'll just, say me for simplicity purposes, then I start to question, like, okay, well, I guess I'm not worth knowing. I guess there's something wrong with me. I guess I don't matter. And there must be something so terribly wrong with me that I'm ashamed of that. And shame, toxic shame is this belief that I'm fundamentally flawed as a human being. And for a child repeatedly to have a parent who's there, not there, there, not there, like, and the limitation of engagement, and to feel like I want to be known, and then you're met with, the child is met with this great grand disappointment of, oh, no one is interested in knowing me. Okay. And if there's something wrong with us of why we don't, the family member doesn't want to know us, then we feel shame. It's this crushing shame. Now, all of this, I went through that whole thing to talk about this carried shame idea. A lot of the shame that we're carrying is not even ours. It's in our body. We soaked it up in our mind like a sponge. And this is the shame of the parent who's not engaging the child. And again, that's not a judgment or a blame of the parent. It's just saying, like, this is what happens. If a child's not engaged, then there's no shame in the family system. The child takes it on and goes, oh, it must be me. Oh, right, it's my fault. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I guess I'm not worth loving. So, and again, this is all subconscious. We don't, unless you're a really bright, super bright child who you can figure all of this out in the early years. Many of us don't figure it out, but this kind of like this, we just sort of come to, we script, or we write the conclusion in our mind in a subconscious way. We can't really name it, but we come out of childhood or later years. We just fundamentally think that we're not worthy of relationship. Now, if the parent is not that present and not offering that much interaction or engagement or curiosity to know you, well, you find that you sort of have to make it up. I mean, isn't that genius? I mean, all of these adaptive strategies and what we might say sometimes are symptoms, or sometimes, these behaviors that are not very, like one-sided relating, the ability to overcompensate and be in relationship with someone who's really not available. As an adult, we say, well, that's not really that helpful. That's not serving you. That you're creating these almost fantasy relationships where you're running the show and it's pretty much just you. And if you stop giving and giving and giving so much, you have no relationship. And we also use the word like situationship. So in that context, we go, well, that's not really serving you. But where did this come from? I just shared where it's coming from. That's what we did with parents. That's what you did with your primary caregiver. That's what you did with your family. That if other people are not engaging you or curious to really know you, curious to have an exchange, to pick up that metaphorical ball of relationship and say, hey, here, I'm going to, heads up. Who are you today? How are you today? What's going on for you? What makes you tick? What moves you about life today? What's your favorite music? Hey, do you want to make dinner together? Tell me how you're feeling. Remember last week when you told me how you're feeling? Well, let's revisit that. How are you feeling about how you were feeling? Do you see that? It's like layers Like, oh my gosh, you're bringing up something from a week and a half ago? You remember? It's called continuity. We with the continuity of, when you're referencing previous experiences, especially if things that were emotionally challenging, there's some incredible warmth that comes out of that, of like, wow, not only did you see me at the time, but you remembered that you saw me, and you bring it back up a week and a half later. And then I feel doubly seen. Well, thank you for asking, thank you for checking in. Thank you thank you for remembering that I was struggling with that, or I was concerned, or I had a joy. It doesn't have to be painful, horrible, sad stuff. I mean, it could be great excitement. Say, hey, I'm just wondering about excitement, that thing that happened a week and a half ago. Are you still really excited? Are you still feeling the glow of what happened, of how you're feeling? Tell me more. Tell me more. Relationship and curiosity thrive. And it's all based on tell me more. Tell me more. So if you're in a situation with a family and parent who, not only do they not say tell me more, they really don't even say tell me anything. They just don't even ask. So if you're a child, you start to develop these adaptive strategies to get your attachment needs met. And one of these adaptive strategies is, I'm just going to make up that we're close, and I'll do all the work. I'll talk at you, not with you, because I know you're really not going to talk back. You're not going to really engage. You're not going to create dialogue. You might even be distracted doing something. You're not even looking at me. You might even leave the room, and I'm still talking to myself. I'm still talking to you through talking to myself. And I'm going to overcompensate. I'm going to invest enough energy and effort, and I'm going to actually complete it in my brain. I'm going to imagine a dialogue, and I might even start filling in your dialogue. I might imagine what you might or might not say, and I'll just keep going. And this way, I can talk at you for many, many years, and I could imagine, if perhaps you've done this too, we then imagine that we're really closer. We really feel a greater sense of affection or relationship. We'd say, yeah, we're in relationship, but it's an amazing thing, the mind, amazing thing was the attachment system's ability to fill in the blanks, which at times is helpful because it does help create a consistency of relating. But for the example I'm giving, and if this is for you and me, not only did we fill in the blanks, but we fill in all the blanks. And in fact, there's no blanks. They're just one big long blank. And we created a relationship where the other family members were not really interacting with us. So we take this skill to distort reality. And then that's the phrase I like. We could call it, we create fantasy relationships, we ignore red flags, we employ denial. What I like the phrase that we distort reality. And we create an alternate reality. And this is a really great skill if you're in some family system where there's abuse or neglect or betrayal or abandonment. You sort of have to, retell the story to yourself in a way that makes it digestible and palatable. Your child mind cannot handle the crushing grief and the reality, the incredible crushing grief of, well, my caregiver, my parent has abandoned me, either literally or emotionally. So I need to soften the intensity of that blow. And I'm going to downplay their unavailability, and I'm just going to make it okay. It's okay. It's workable. It's all workable, Another approach that we might take is we become an entertainer. And I noticed in the video, I could see I did this with my hands. I mean, that's another adaptive strategy. Not only overcompensating, not only filling in a relationship that's not really there, distorting reality, denying the truth, because the grief and the realization how frightening it is that the one we want to be in a relationship with is not really here. But in addition to putting in all this extra effort and trying really hard and overcompensating, we also might entertain. It's like, not only will I give you a lot of me, but I'm going to give you a bunch of extra because I don't really think that I have enough to offer, and I have to do a lot of work to get your attention. So a lot of tap dancing, a lot of look at me, a lot of cartwheels in the living room, a lot of loudness, maybe humor. You might become the family clown and you make a lot of jokes. And a lot of it is just to make sure that you get attention, because there's a deficit in the amount of attention that you're getting. And so you're like, okay, I guess I got to work the room. I gotta work for it. Ta-da! And you get people turn their head, people laugh, and in that process of them engaging you, you're still getting your attachment needs met. But my gosh, you're working really, really hard. So these adaptive strategies to survive and to get through this process and to, over time, really slowly let in, I really don't think that my family engaged me. I really don't think that they were there for me. They were loving, they were friendly, they were good people, and they didn't really know me. So if this is you, then you take all of these behaviors, these adaptive strategies into your adult relationships. Now, do you see the incredible challenge here? It's that you can pick a person who's not really giving you anything, and you're going to give a lot. And this great imbalance that's happening, and you might distort reality. You might tell yourself, oh no, they're so incredibly loving. And they could be loving, This doesn't mean that people are cold-hearted or mean. It just, there seems to be a good percentage of people who just do not value emotional transparency, vulnerability, openness, curiosity, and offering an engagement, a present, immediate engagement of revealing who we are to each other. And some people watching this video, maybe it's you too, but some people hearing this, they have no idea what I'm talking about. And not only do they not know what I'm talking about, they hear it as something completely unattractive. Like, I am just not interested in that. I have no need for this. I have no skill for this. I have no idea what you're talking about. And good for you that that's what you want, but I'm just not interested. So the unfortunate hook, the unfortunate barb, the rub that happens is that many of us who have the skill to give extra, to entertain, to overcompensate, to fill in the gaps, to distort reality, to deny being ignored, to deny what's happening, and ignore red flags, those of us seem to find people who mirror people who don't engage, or find people who are very similar to the way that our history is with the parent who doesn't engage. And it takes, for that reason, it takes us a really, really long time to wake up and go, hey, wait a minute, this person's not available. This person is emotionally closed off. This person is guarded. This person is shut down. This person is withholding. This person is pushing me away. This person has no interest in knowing me. And maybe if we didn't have this history, we might figure it out in, after 6 dates. We might figure it out after 6 weeks. But some of us, I am going to say maybe we don't figure it out for 6 months, but that's really, I'm sorry to say it, and this is true if this is your history. Some of it, it's like we don't figure this out after 6 months. We figure it out after 6 years. But we're not totally clueless for 6 years. We know it's off. We know there's something wrong. We keep voicing there's a little more. There's got to be more. Can we change? Can we change? And we're really trying to explain to the other person And I'm just going to reference what I shared earlier. We explained, like, well, there's this ball, and it's this ball of energy, and it's called a bid for connection. It's an emotional ball that comes from my heart. And it's about engagement. It's about revealing who we are. And what fuels it and propels it is this curiosity to connect and to know each other in the immediacy of the present moment. And I'm going to throw the ball to you. And that's a bid for connection. And you have to have the skill to notice the ball. And you say, oh, wow, you're making a bid for connection. How wonderful. You really want to know me. And that's what they say, and then they say, oh, how wonderful. Yes, I would love to be known, and I would love to throw the ball back. And then we're off, and we're playing this game of attachment catch, or we're in the dance. Sometimes instead of the ball metaphor, we use we're dancing. There's this shared choreography. And it's just really painful that many of us have not been told or taught. Not everybody wants to do this. See, as a kid, we have no option but to do this. If you don't do it, you implode, you become despondent, you shut down, you dissociate, and you don't get any of your attachment needs met. So your whole outlook and how your brain is wired is, I will make this work no matter what. And I don't know if that sounds familiar to you, but many of us in not so good relationships with people who are emotionally unavailable, who are emotionally frightened, who are emotionally skillless, clueless, unavailable, they just do not care. They are not interested. But yet they say they want to be in a relationship. And yet they've somehow created a commitment with you, and also they're pretty okay with you doing all the emotional heavy lifting. And they don't think anything's wrong, because this is what, they're okay being completely non-engaged. They don't see this as something they would want, that they would need, that it's a skill to learn. And they're not even aware of how incredibly emotionally painful and rejecting and hurtful that it is to you. And again, I don't, whoever's watching this video may, I'm trying to acknowledge, it's coming from both sides. That there's all of these dynamics of empathy to everyone, compassion to all of us. This is the result of history of attachment needs not getting met, showing up as wounds, and then ultimately activating trauma symptoms. And trauma symptoms are what we call hyperarousal, intrusion, and constriction. So, do you just feel how incredibly impossible this all is? It's really hard then to be in relationship after you've chosen someone who they're just not interested and they don't know how, and then you probably take on the role, or again, I mean it's of wanting change, please change, change. What if we go to therapy? What if we go to, And it's all based on this ability, what keeps this going, and this is now full circle, the whole point of this video, what keeps this all going is your ability to distort reality and not see them clearly, not see their skill or lack of skill clearly, not to see yourself as overcompensating and running the show and doing all the work, and your inability, you're distorting reality, you're distorting the grief, the ongoing chronic grief that this is creating for you, and not being able to fully address, and distorting reality by saying, it'll get better, it'll get better, it'll get better, it'll change, it'll change. Well, the invitation here is just to reflect on this inability to end relationships, this inability to see an ending, this inability to trust the skill to end, and to perpetually always think that you're going to repair, improve, go to therapy. That in and of itself, that whole mindset, that itself is an assessment, is a symptom of attachment trauma. that undying belief that you're going to turn this around. That too can be, not all the time, but many times after you've been in this for years and years and years of a relationship that just does not get off the ground, and yet you've been together for years, and there's that ongoing, like, just never really feeling known, that there's not the kind of emotional engagement that you know exists, that for you want it, but it's not happening. And yet you stay in that relationship. And lastly, I do know that many people get very angry when I talk about this. Say, oh, so you're just promoting leave, just leave. I guess we just have to leave. Well, that's your choice. I am not suggesting that it's easy to leave. I'm not suggesting there are not some real world complications, a web of commitments and responsibilities, and very real challenges, limitations, and obstacles to leaving. But at the same time, you also refortify, sign up for, strengthen staying stuck and not getting your attachment needs met. And if we choose to stay, then we're really challenged with, how do I live with this loss? How do I live with the grief of not getting the kind of relationship I know is possible and that I want, and not getting attachment needs met? And how do I live with the grief of not being known with my adult partner? But not only that it mirrors the grief and the wound of not being known historically in my family. It's almost like a double wound, or it's like opening an old wound with a new wound. It's like wound on top of a wound. So, if you have some history of emotional neglect, you might have this great skill of distorting reality and downplaying your own needs and overcompensating through one-sided behaving, so that the other person isn't really participating or engaging, and that you're keeping the whole thing going by your being extra. And you're probably exhausted. And you probably have a lot of resentment. Usually this creates an incredible amount of anger and just resenting that you go through life not getting your needs met. There are going to be more videos like this one talking about attachment injuries, attachment wounds, and attachment trauma, talking about the origin, such as emotional neglect, talking about abandonment, emotional abandonment, and then also kinds of betrayal, and how that really undermines trust and safety, and it means that we go without getting our attachment needs met. And some of us just stay in this place for many, many, many years, and it's painful, a lot of suffering. So this video is hopefully shedding some light on that, offering empathy, offering compassion, and also release some of the shame. This is not set up because you're faulty or you're a mistake or there's something wrong with you or that you're not lovable. The truth is, all of that, even all of those conclusions and those core beliefs, are symptoms of attachment trauma. And that you could begin to exhale, could begin to just come to a neutral place and start to inventory and think about where in this world. I don't care if it's the person at the grocery store, I don't care if it's someone on the street, if it's a neighbor, doesn't have to be romantic partner, doesn't have to be spouse, but you start letting in and finding the people, finding the exchanges, even if they're brief, where you notice someone's playing ball, someone's going to join you in this kind of exchange. And I don't know if that will solve your, bigger relationship challenges, but in the meantime, it's going to strengthen the skill to practice identifying where you don't have to distort reality, you don't have to deny the truth, you don't have to override red flags and say, I want to find people in this world who actually mirror back, who actually respond back, who are giving an emotionally engaged, present moment interaction. And when that happens, you're going to feel it in your body. It feels like life. It feels like it's like you drank a big tall glass of water, and all of a sudden you just feel hydrated. You're emotionally hydrated. Okay. You can, hashtag emotional hydrated. Okay. We're coming to an end. I put a lot of effort into videos, time, organizing notes, passion, trying to share some experience, and also I lead from a very personal place, which means sometimes I have to record this video 3 or 4 times before I'm in the zone and able to do it. If you get value, if you can tell that I'm trying to offer something of benefit, then help support me in multiple ways. You can, what I call, do all the things. You click like, you hit subscribe, you leave a message, a comment, but also take this video and share it with other people. Post it on other social media sites. We can spread the word. And this is all, ultimately, it's about suffering, living with suffering. Not getting your attachment needs met is one of the most painful, disconnecting experiences in life. You feel isolated, you feel you don't belong, you feel lonely. And you oftentimes just feel empty. You have this ongoing chronic emptiness of this hollow feeling. Well, we're not going to solve that alone. We solve it through a relationship. And one way is just start talking about it and know that you're not alone, I'm not alone. Many of us know this experience. And it begins by educating ourselves and having the language to identify the pattern, and not getting stepped on or crushed by shame, not getting stepped on or crushed by these beliefs that you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you don't matter, you're not lovable. Ouch, too much. So share the video, let other people know, share it with a friend and talk to engage with a friend, talk about it. This is how we heal. This is how we grow. This is how we mature. So more videos just like this on the way. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you next time.